Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Design to Move. Today's topic is on mobility and flexibility. Mobility is a fundamental component of corrective and preventative exercise. The objective of preventative exercise or biomechanics is to use basic training techniques like mobility interventions in ways that are proven to reduce injury incidents while you're enhancing your performance. Musculoskeletal injuries are very common and are often related to a lack of flexibility and range of motion. As the body recruits groupings of muscles to support different movements or movement profiles, the balance of tension between these muscles will determine if the motion created is efficient and preserves the health of the tissues and joints involved. When muscles become short, tight, or restrictive due to improper use, quality of movement is compromised, and this leads to abnormal wear and tear cycles that can lead to injury and dysfunction. So that's why today we're going to introduce you to several mobility techniques, including static stretching, dynamic stretching, self-myofascial and trigger point releases, and PNF or neuromuscular stretching. We're going to show you how to perform them, which ones are best to use under different circumstances, and how you would use the interventions to restore the natural length relationships of the muscles affected and restore your functional biomechanics. You're going to notice that we have a table of contents that define the different segments of today's topic with a timestamp of where they're located in the video. Before performing any of the methods or techniques that we show, you'll want to review the how-to content in each of the segments. Understanding the methods, structures, and anatomy involved is critical for you to achieve the positive changes that you're looking for. If you have any questions on today's topic specifically, make sure to reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. Let's go ahead and get started. So what is mobility actually? Well, mobility is defined as the ability to actively move a limb through its full range of motion. Often confused, the term flexibility, on the other hand, is defined as the ability of a muscle to extend passively through its full range of motion, meaning something's acting on it. While the two are different, they are very much intertwined. Flexibility is a component of mobility, while joint mobility, strength, and motor control are also components required for good mobility. So why is mobility so important? Well, mobility is the basis of proper movement and in general improves our joints and body's ability to resist injury. Furthermore, studies have shown that a reduced range of motion is a risk factor for overuse injuries in athletes. Additionally, greater mobility creates the ability to move through better patterns of movement, thus allowing for proper form during exercise. This can also help to reduce injury. So what are the ways that we can improve our mobility? Well, there's a variety of ways to improve mobility, from static and passive techniques to active dynamic means. Today we're going to show you 4 different types of mobility methods that you can use to improve your range of motion and your biomechanics. That brings us to our first method of mobility, static mobility or stretching. This type of mobility technique involves sustained holds of a stretch for greater than 10 seconds in an attempt to improve the range of motion or decrease the injury potential of a muscle. It may also involve sustained pressure on localized areas of tension and increased muscle tone, otherwise known as trigger points. When a trigger point persists, it can also make the muscles stick together and can create an adhesion. We'll talk about that more later. While this type of mobility has been shown to increase range of motion, it also has been shown to temporarily reduce strength, power, and performance, and so is therefore not recommended as a warm-up prior to exercise, but as a cool-down after physical exercise. Static stretching is performed by elongating the targeted muscle to an in-range of motion and then statically holding that position for 10 to 30 seconds or until a release is felt and additional range of motion is achieved. It's important to keep maximal control of your body's structures while completing the stretch. Make sure that the alignment of the joints being acted on by the muscles aren't moving them away from their centers of gravity. You want to make sure that you move in and out of the elongated position or stretch with minimal acceleration or speed. Static stretching of 20 to 30 seconds causes a relaxation response from the muscle, allowing for an immediate increase in range of motion. It's thought that the long-term adaptation achieved from this type of stretching is due to the muscle's increase in tolerance to the stretch and by increasing the actual length of the muscle through the addition of tissues being added to the muscle itself. One of the main components of static stretching and mobility is the ability to relax a muscle, as well as the ability of the nervous system to prevent a stretch reflex, counteracting the movement. One way to encourage muscle relaxation and thus improve the stretch is the use of proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, or PNF stretching. While there's a variety of different PNF techniques, the most commonly used method is known as contract-relax, in which an individual would stretch the targeted muscle to its limit. Then they would contract the muscle and hold it for a period of about 6 to 10 seconds, after which they would relax it completely and then stretch the muscle to its limit again. This process is generally repeated 2 to 3 times. There are many mechanisms proposed for how this PNF works, but in general it's thought that specific receptors known as Golgi tendon organs are stimulated by an undesirable stimulus, aka the stretching, and by contracting the target muscle, these receptors are inhibited for a short period of time. PNF stretching, or neuromuscular stretching, combines the benefits of both static and active stretching while keeping the risk of tissue injury low. To complete a PNF stretch, first you want to lengthen the muscle as far as you can without pain, tremor, or tingle. Then you would contract the muscle being stretched. This will stimulate a relaxation response from the muscle, allowing it to elongate or extend further. After the contraction, there's a period where the muscle being targeted lets go and you can extend it further. This is referred to as inhibition, or inhibiting the muscle stretch reflex. The response is thought to last up to 15 seconds. When the muscle relaxes, you can capture the inhibition and elongate the muscle by flexing the muscles that oppose it. This is referred to as active stretching. Once you bring the muscle to its endpoint range of motion, you would hold it again for 8 to 10 seconds statically, then repeat the contract-relax method. You complete the process multiple times. We suggest completing the contract-relax stretching process 2 to 3 times on the muscle being targeted before moving forward. The second method we're going to review is called active mobility, or active stretching. This technique is also referred to as dynamic stretching and involves a series of movements, often sport or activity specific, within the available range of motion necessary for that activity. Dynamic stretching helps to loosen the fibers within the joint and the muscle required for a given movement, but does not impact the ballistic or elastic properties of the tissues. Therefore, dynamic stretching is preferred during warm-up and prior to exercise. As with static stretching, it's important to keep maximal control of your body structures while completing dynamic or sport-specific stretching patterns. Usually you would begin with single joint motion, then progress into multi-joint or full-body global movement. The goal for this type of stretching is to bring a muscle or grouping of muscles through their active range of motion without overstretching. Dynamic stretching is an advanced form of stretching for individuals who already possess sufficient amounts of joint mobility and overall muscular control. Our third method is myofascial release, or self-massage. The ideas of mobility and flexibility generally revolve around the idea of muscle tension and elasticity. However, there are many other tissues that impact the ability of the joint to move freely, including nerves, blood vessels, ligaments, and fascia. Fascia is a type of connective tissue that surrounds all of the body structures. Superficial fascia is found between the skin and the muscle, and the fascia that surrounds the muscles is known formally as myofascia. Another technique for increasing mobility is called myofascial release, where we focus on sustained pressure on a myofascial trigger point. A myofascial trigger point is a hyper-irritable spot of skeletal muscle that's associated with referred pain and altered motor function. When this sustained pressure is paired with joint motion, it's referred to as active myofascial release. The mechanisms for how myofascial release increase mobility isn't really fully understood, but it is thought that in the presence of trauma or inflammation, that fascia will increase its tension and reduce pliability. And with sustained pressure on these areas of increased tension, receptors in the tissue send signals to the nervous system to restore a more relaxed and organized structure. Research has shown that something as little as 10 to 30 seconds can accomplish this. In order to know what you're feeling when performing self-myofascial release on yourself, you first need to explore the tissues by palpating or, again, self-massage. First, you need to detect hot and cold areas. Inflammation, muscle spasm, or increased circulation may cause these hot areas, while cold areas can be caused by impaired circulation, fibrotic tissues, and inhibited muscle activity. Hyperactive areas will feel warmer, thicker, denser, or bumpier. Underactive areas will feel cooler, thinner, or as if holes are present. Superficial tissue should feel like gelatin, resilient and springy. Skeletal muscles will feel ropey or like fine-corded fabric. Your deep fascia and tendons feel like duct tape or sheets of plastic wraps. When you feel your tissues, you may come across knots, which feel like hard balls, and adhesions that feel like little crackles when you go over it. Think of the muscles as either short and tight or long and taut. It's usually good to focus on the shorter and tighter muscles when you begin. Start off by palpating your muscle, searching for variances in tissue density and temperature. Once a knot or adhesion is found, you can explore its borders to pinpoint the area you'll be targeting using self-myofascial release. The goal being to break down the adhesive tissue and organize its fiber direction to be more in line with the muscle. A variety of tools can be used for this, included but not limited to golf balls, lacrosse balls, foam core balls, Theracanes, and foam rollers. Percussion and vibration massagers have also become popular for this in recent years. The surface area of the ball or device determines the pounds per square inch or the amount of pressure being applied to the tissue. Static pressure should be applied to muscle at a rate that doesn't cause it to guard or reflexively contract. Generally, you should start off with a broader, larger ball to distribute your body weight more evenly on the surface, giving you more control over the pressure. You can progress to a smaller surface area once you determine your tissue tolerance. The sustained pressure triggers the nervous system to relax the muscle, allowing it to extend. This also helps to break down the surface layer of the fascial tissue around the muscle. This is referred to as passive inhibition or trigger point release. This is usually accomplished within 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Once the muscle has been passively inhibited or relaxed, the next step is to actively stretch the tissue under the pressure of the ball. You would do this by flexing the joint that the muscle attaches to. This is referred to as an active release technique. You would move through the joint's range of motion until the first barrier of resistance is felt. There should be no guarding or pain. The sustained pressure along with the motion will aid in the reformation of the collagens that make up the fascial tissue. You would hold the pressure at the first barrier for 10 seconds, allowing for the further relaxation of the nervous system, and then increase the range of motion to a second barrier for stretch for 10 to 15 seconds. When you've gotten to your second barrier, return to your original range of motion and repeat the same steps 3 more times. Thank you again, guys, for joining us today for another episode. If you have any questions on today's topic, or if you'd like to schedule an appointment for a complimentary movement analysis or assessment, make sure to reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com or check out our website at fluidhealthandfitness.com. As always, your body is designed to move, so stay in motion, and we'll see you soon.